Welcome to a special edition of EBMG's Melanated News You Can Use. I'm your host, Lady Lila Brown, and I have the honor and privilege to sit down for an exclusive one-on-one interview with historic and legendary Mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass. We had an opportunity to discuss a wide range of issues from housing discrimination, segregation, reparations, and the passing of her unprecedented funding, $1.3 billion for homelessness.
Thank you for meeting with me today. Take some time out of your schedule, and I want to say congratulations.
Thank you.
On passing historic city budget and just really bringing more attention to the humanitarian crisis and homelessness in the city. So I want to know what's next on your agenda for preventing homelessness with the moratorium and the renters protections. How do you make sure the next disadvantaged group doesn't fall into homelessness?
Well, I'm very concerned about that, and so we are addressing that in two ways. First of all, the City Council passed tenant protection, but I'm very worried that tenants won't know about it. And so we have contracted with an outside firm to essentially get the information out there to the public using social media, print, radio, TV, whatever, to communicate to Angelenos that there are protections. Also, the Los Angeles Mayor's Fund, which is an independent nonprofit that I inherited from Mayor Garcetti, we are focusing on expanding the outreach on a grassroots level. So the firms will do it in a more traditional way. The grassroots organizations will do it in an entirely different way, where they're reaching out directly to people. The other thing that they're doing in the Mayor's Fund is they're recruiting pro bono attorneys. And so that, I believe, is critically important, because if we're not careful, for every person that we're getting off the streets at Inside Safe and other ways that we're getting people off the streets, we could have 4 or 5 more people falling into homelessness.
So, how do you get the landlords, property owners, property managers to accept some of the programs that you're setting up, such as the Section 8 vouchers?
Well, that's a different issue. That's a different issue. What we were doing in terms of making sure that renters knew they had some protections, but in terms of communicating with landowners, that's a program that we're going to begin in the next month or so, and that is an outreach campaign to Angelenos who own apartments around the country to please just accept 1 or 2 vouchers, and that we will work with the landlords so that we send them a proper tenant, and we also don't abandon that tenant once they have moved into the housing. And so we're hoping that this spirit of collective responsibility that all Angelenos need to step up will be evident by additional landowners being willing to accept vouchers.
So, when you were newly elected, you talked about a lot of the barriers of red tape. You called it self-inflicted.
Yes.
For some that may feel more targeted attacks, because it was redlining, gentrification, just housing discrimination and segregation.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't that. I didn't mean that at all.
Oh, okay, but
No. What I mean is that, for example, to place people into housing, the federal government required Los Angeles and every other city to come up with a system to determine who gets housed. Unfortunately, the system that we came up with is so onerous that a lot of people who should be housed are not housed, which is why you can see housing being built in South LA and people from literally outside of Los Angeles City, maybe in some of the surrounding cities in the county, actually getting benefit of the housing.
So should there be some legal remedy for housing segregation and housing discrimination?
Well, I think, absolutely, if that is taking place. What I'm describing, though, I think is something different. To me, housing discrimination is I'm attempting to rent an apartment that's widely advertised as being vacant, but the minute I show up, all of a sudden it's filled, and if a white individual shows up, then the unit is still vacant. That's a different type of thing than what I'm describing. I'm describing bureaucratic hurdles that were unnecessary. That's what was self-inflicted. So since we set up the bureaucracy, we have the power to set that bureaucracy aside, and we have done that.
Thanks for clearing that up, because you said I just wanted to get more clarification on that.
Problem.
But President Biden has noted that housing discrimination has created barriers to the racial wealth gap.
Absolutely.
So how do you get the larger Los Angeles business community to get involved with that? Because it seems like the root cause of this is some economic exclusion. So how do we bring all that together?
Well, you know, those things have to be documented, and people need to pursue legal remedies, and you have the Legal Aid Foundation and other legal services that can do that. And we have to fight against that type of discrimination, just like employment discrimination.
Okay, great. So, with Hollywood, there's been issues with some of the talent casting, racial discrimination, also below the line, behind the scenes. How do you get Hollywood on board with your agenda and making LA more equitable?
Well, really and truly, the way I have been working with Hollywood is to make sure that there's diversity in the below the line, the crafts, the grafts, the grips, the painters, the mold, the people that make molds, all of that there be a diversity in terms of who gets hired. And then also when we do things like offer tax credits, you know that we expect diversity there in terms of the companies that are issued the credits.
Great. And well, Los Angeles has a Reparations Advisory Commission now. How will your office be working with that department?
Well, you know, that's a very good question. Capri Maddox is the general manager over that department. And it's something that I want to get involved in and find out exactly where they are with the process, just like the State Commission. So I haven't had the opportunity to review those reports, but I certainly plan to.
Okay, great. I just want to switch gears to the Olympics because a lot of planning is going on, and we usually don't hear about problems that stem from bribery and corruption until after the games. And with it being planned right now, how do you make sure that small businesses will be included with the planning and rendering services?
Thank you. I really appreciate that question. So our Deputy Mayor for Business and Economic Development, Rachel Freeman, is leading the way in that effort. And the two of us met with Casey Wasserman, who's in charge of organizing LA 28, which is the local Olympic committee. And we asked him if he would do a presentation right now for small and minority-owned business. And the reason is because as I've talked to people in the community, they actually believe that the decisions have already been made and they're already excluded. And that's just not the case. No decisions have been made, and I'm referring to small business contractors. The procurement process has not gotten underway. And so we want people to know ahead of time what specifically the games will be looking for, so they can think about it and get their house in order now.
All right, during the height of the pandemic, there were other cities that were enticing Angelenos to move their businesses and just, leave the state altogether. How do you convince small business owners, entrepreneurs to keep their business in Los Angeles?
Well, I think that the number one way to do that is to house the people that are unhoused, which is a quality of life issue. It's an issue that is very troubling to local businesses because sometimes encampments are nearby or in front of their business, and for people to feel safe, and for small businesses to understand that the city doesn't just support them and embrace them, the city wants to help them flourish. And so through our deputy mayor, we've definitely been sounding that alarm to all of the various business organizations.
And I just love the coalition that is happening with Dr. Shirley Weber and State Controller Malia Cohen. It seems like the whole government approach is playing out nicely. And then you had the Ambassador Rice and Secretary Fudge involvement as well. Can you talk a little bit more about that? How everyone's working together?
I think that one, the work I've done over the last 4 decades has always involved bringing people together, regardless of ideology, geography, race, gender, whatever, and focus on a specific problem. And the problem I'm referring to, of course, is the problem of 47,000 Angelenos being unhoused. But what I wanted to bring to the table, and I said this during the campaign, is because I served in the State House and on the federal side, that I could leverage those relationships. In the next couple of days, for example, the Secretary of Health and Human Services will be coming, Javier Becerra, and that's to talk about health care and especially substance abuse and mental health treatment for people who are unhoused. So building on relationships that I've built over many years and bringing those relationships to the table to help us with our most pressing problems is something that I'm focusing on a great deal. And I've always had strong relationships at the city and the county level, even though I've never served in local office.
And then, you've shown early support for Representative Barbara Lee. What should voters know about her? Why should we choose her? Because, there's a lot of, there's Angelino, there's Adam Schiff, Representative Schiff, or Katie Porter. Why should we vote
I will say,
Lee?
first of all, the three candidates that are running for senator are all incredibly talented and committed legislators, and I could speak for each of them. Barbara Lee, however, is one of my closest friends. She's been a mentor and advisor to me for many, many years. I first started working with her almost 30 years ago when she was in the state legislature. She helped us with problems that we were dealing with in South LA. And since I served in Congress, she has been there for me every step of the way. And one of the things that people should know about her is that she's one of the hardest working people on the Hill and has had tremendous accomplishments in her years since being there. She's internationally known for a number of reasons, one of which was she was on the forefront of the fight against AIDS. She was on the forefront of holding the Bush administration accountable and supplying AIDS medications on the continent of Africa. So literally, hundreds of thousands of people's lives were saved because of her advocacy. That's just a few of the reasons. But then, after 240 years in our country, 40 plus years in our country, the fact that there is no African American woman serving in the U.S. Senate, I think is quite a shame.
Thank you so much for answering my questions and clearing some
You're
things
welcome.
up.
This has been another special edition of Melanated News You Can Use. Thank you so much for tuning in. For more extensive coverage on Mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, be sure to check out my website, ellabmediagroup.com. And until next time, take care and good luck.